What a stinker. Although it's hard to get to see these movies first. One of the downsides is that you don't know which way things are going to go. So you kind of just have to go with your gut. I really hated this movie. But anyway, I was surprised to see a number of social media reactions so far being kind of positive. Although we've seen that before, where social media reactions will be very kind to a film, only for all the criticisms to come out when the review embargo itself lifts. We'll see which way this breaks. Is The Bride the new Joker 2? Or perhaps the new Poor Things, which I hated. But it was nominated for a bunch of Oscars and won a couple of them, including for Emma Stone. I'm sure Maggie Gyllenhaal is sure that she has her own version of Poor Things. And if I'm going to give it if I'm going to go along with that at all, it would be with the asterisk that this is the Temu version of Poor Things. But a lot of people buy stuff from Temu. So the ad campaign is very misleading, which I think is one of the things that really hurts this movie. So at least I'm here to tell you. It makes it seem like it's more of a commercial, straightforward film. But at least the movie itself is very honest, because Maggie Gyllenhaal lets you know as soon as the movie starts what you're getting into. And boy, I instantly regretted it. I was like, it's going to be a long 2 hours. And it was. So I was all in on this classic tale done Bonnie and Clyde style with a nod to Joker and Harley Quinn. A lot of us were. So imagine my surprise when Gyllenhaal opened the film, I kid you not, with Mary Shelley's ghost. And not even a cool ghost, like a theater ghost, okay? In a really tight close-up, right? Where Jessie Buckley is also playing this role, and it's a really tight close-up where she's talking directly to camera, right? In a twisted, disjointed monologue. She's like, what should we do today? I'm not even exaggerating. I was like, what fresh hell is this that I've stepped into? And so we very quickly learned, so this isn't a spoiler because it happens in the first 5 minutes of the movie, that the reason Buckley is playing both characters is because Ida, we'll talk about the name Ida here in a moment, not an accident that it was chosen, but she becomes possessed by Mary Shelley's ghost and then gets turned into the bride. And they never really make it clear as if it was a horrible accident or if maybe Mary Shelley wanted it to happen and willed it to happen. So, I know, right? Who wasn't like, Maggie, I love you, but you got to take this part of the movie out. The result is a writer and actor's fever dream. I'm sure that Jessie Buckley and Maggie Gyllenhaal were in set being like, we're making cinema history here. And everybody else was just like, what's that famous, thing that's become a meme? Does he know? Do they know? It's like so awful. So Ida has lots of conversations in the movie all by herself, constantly. It never goes away, which horribly convolutes the story. It was so bad that and right away it was bad. So in the first act, when Frankenstein's like, let's go dig up a lady friend for me, I wished I could have shouted at the screen, no, Frank, not that one. She monologues. Keep looking. But now he dug her up. So Frank, he seems okay with it. At one point after one of her really long rants, he goes, you have an amazing vocabulary. And you're like, well, I understand you're stuck with it, Frank. You can't do this again. So you're just going to have to make peace with it. And he's not much better. Something else that the movie has is that he gets lost in these daydreams where he imagines himself in 1930s romance musicals. I felt there was some kind of commentary there. But I would have appreciated it more if the musicals were well done. Like the fantasy sequences were just bad. And right, you might be like, there's no way this is what's happening in the movie. But it is. This is what the movie is. I can get behind experimental, highly stylized film. I loved Nightmare Alley, for instance. And I'm sure there are some, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there are some experimental films. Megalopolis, I could get a little bit behind what Francis Ford Coppola was trying to accomplish there, right? And I'd even be willing to forgive this movie, despite the misleading ad campaign, if the film itself was any good. But writer-director Maggie Gyllenhaal has so much that she wants to say she ends up not saying anything. There's this constant literary reference to I Prefer Not To, which of course is a very famous line from the story Bartleby the Scrivener. And you're like, why is this in the movie? I mean, it's a great line. It's a classic, iconic story and, again, line from the history of literature. But you're like, pick a lane, Maggie. Pick a lane. For instance, the movie is weighed down by heavy and also often conflicting feminist messaging. For instance, Maggie Gyllenhaal wants to explore the idea of consent, right? Did anyone ask Ida if she wanted to marry Frankenstein? Well, that made me think of the movie Passengers a lot, by the way. But, I mean, it's not the same. So I think that's a complicated conversation to have and not seem ridiculous. I think it could be done, and I do see potential there, right? The line that Ida has when Annette Bening's character is trying to be like, he's really a nice guy. And Ida's like, then you marry him. I thought that was pretty good. But then later on, Ida seems to maybe actually like Frank. And I mean, let's not forget she was dead. So what's going on here? What are we discussing? It wasn't a very compelling argument. It seemed more just like complaining for the sake of complaining. And speaking of references, while the classic film references, right? And by the way, none of which I picked up to classic movie monster films, which is if you're going to make classic movie references in a movie like this, that's what you should be referencing. Like, for instance, Penelope Cruz's character's first name is Myrna. And you're like, is that for Myrna Loy, who was a famous silver screen female crime solver? Maybe. And is calling Zlatko Burik's mobster, who, by the way, he's sure working a lot these days, calling him Lupino, a nod to Ida Lupino, and Ida is the name of our lead character as well, right? So that must be intentional. Now, if you're not familiar with Ida Lupino, she is an actress who became one of the first female directors in Hollywood. Really an important figure to women in Hollywood. This movie is not going to, it's weird. Usually if you're going to make references to things, you would educate people about what you're referencing. But no. And then also what makes it even weirder is that why would you name a brutal misogynistic gangster after Ida Lupino? It's got nothing to do with her. And I don't think she'd appreciate it. Does the bride occasionally click? Most definitely, which makes it all the more frustrating. You're like, it's so beautiful sometimes and sometimes so good. Why, Maggie, why? I'd say one of the best moments is when Christian Bale's Frankenstein, I don't want to give it away because, it's one of the few things about the movie to enjoy, but it captures how something that seems trivial, like the love of an actor or a movie or a character, can actually be integral to how a person feels about themselves, right? And can give them a touchstone in this crazy, chaotic world. To hear Frank try to verbalize that on the verge of tears, I found very touching and very poignant. And I think very relatable to any of us who have ever taken to heart an actor or a movie or a character. I'm like, I know how you feel, Frank. I feel that way about Batman and Robert Osborne. I mean, those things are important to us. And so I appreciated that. And I wish that, again, pick a lane, Maggie. And this was a viable lane that she only dipped a toe in. As for Jessie Buckley's The Bride, because she's two characters in one, it makes her character ridiculously meta. She's like often commenting on the movie that she's in. And you're like, oh my God. And it also makes it very hard for other characters to interact with her because nobody else knows but us that she's possessed by Mary Shelley's ghost. So when she suddenly starts screaming about Percy, only the audience, and then probably not everybody, is aware that's a reference to Mary Shelley's husband, Percy, who in the context of this movie was still from 100 years ago. This is the 1930s. I think he died a little bit before 1820. So how many gangsters and cops in 1930s Chicago and New York are fans of classic literature? I mean, it's ridiculous. And they didn't even try to pretend to make them fans. No one was like, are you referencing the famous Mary Shelley's husband, Percy? We just drove by it real fast. And you were just like, what's happening? Can somebody please grab the wheel? This movie reminds me like a lot of bad stuff, but it reminds me of the recent 2017 revival of Glenn Close in the musical version of Sunset Boulevard. And I found a lot more to appreciate about that. I saw it, by the way, than this movie, But that musical, while it has won a lot of Tonys over the years, it's been brought back a couple of times. Nicole Scherzinger seemed to kind of like repair the image of it recently. But, you know, with this Glenn Close revival back in 2017, a lot of people were like, holy crap, that's bad. And I feel like this is the same kind of a situation, right? And if you're at all familiar with that production, now you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. And the rest of you're just going to sadly have to find out for yourselves. At the beginning of last year, you might recall that Warner Brothers Film was in real trouble. And everybody was whispering that Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy might get fired. And that people were doing deep dives into what a mess the division was. And one of the things that people were whispering in particular was who on earth would give Maggie Gyllenhaal $80 million, $100 million with reshoots, considering how small, in every sense of the word, her other films have been. But then the trailers started to come out, and I think a lot of us felt, well, look what she did with it. And the film does look incredible, to her credit, and her team's credit. From the hair and makeup, not only well done, but so creative. To the costumes, same thing. To the sets, the film is absolutely stunning to look at, which makes it all the more sad how bad it is. Especially when Frank and the bride go to Times Square and then later Niagara Falls. There are moments that establish those two locations, and they're brief. I wish we spent more time there. What did she spend all this money on? But with the neon lights, I was just captivated. It just took my breath away. What a beautiful world for just a couple of seconds that Maggie Gyllenhaal created. I was like, are we going to explore that? And they're like, no, we're going to talk more about these other subjects, just briefly. And you're like, why? And what a cast. Yes, Maggie Gyllenhaal has all the building blocks here for a phenomenal film. But instead, it's bogged down by a script that reads like the kind of off-Broadway show that people are always making fun of. Where the playwright and director, in this case the same person, feel they're too smart for the room instead of they just did bad work. Give Maggie Gyllenhaal $80 to $100 million after having seen what she wanted to do with it, having seen the script, I wouldn't have greenlit it. I wouldn't have given her any money unless she ripped out the Mary Shelley possession bit, and that would be just the start of what she needed to change. I'd be like, show me your through lines, Maggie. Oh my goodness, you don't have any. All right, so throwing out ideas isn't enough, right? You have to offer commentary on them. Speak to somebody who's an expert at screenwriting, and you will see that 3-act structure is very important, and there are certain things that you're supposed to do. And to me, I felt the script failed spectacularly in that regard. So you can't just throw ideas out. You have to offer commentary on them and do something with them. The Bride, to me, doesn't even feel like an actual movie with a script. Instead, it feels like Maggie Gyllenhaal's vision board brought to life. There are some pretty big actors wrapped up in all this. So yeah, let's take a moment to discuss how they fare. So I'll just rip the Band-Aid off. I'm not a fan of Jessie Buckley. I certainly respect her as an actress. And hey, she's about to win an Oscar. She's been winning awards all season long. But to me, she just is very unnatural on screen. She always feels like acting. You know, she's like Norma Desmond. Not the performance of Norma Desmond, but the character of Norma Desmond to me. Now, I'm sure some people really enjoy her style of acting, although she has yet to be in a very successful film. Hamnet seems to be doing well on digital. And to her credit, I can't think of a single other actor like her in real life. So at least she's unique. And if you do enjoy her work, then maybe you'll like The Bride more than I do. Meanwhile, Christian Bale is excellent here. He's always good. And this totally vibes. I was wondering why he was even in the movie, right? I was like, boy, he must have really gotten along with Maggie Gyllenhaal when they were filming Batman. And it was kind of funny at points to think of him playing a Joker type, well, supposedly Joker type character when he had been Batman. But this also vibes with him sometimes making really weird movie choices, right? And starring in movies that nobody sees, and in some cases shouldn't see. You should see Hostiles, though. Hostiles was great. But I guess his casting works to a degree because he is very much the opposite of Buckley, and that he feels so natural. She's unnatural. He feels very natural. And because of that, there are moments where I think you genuinely connect to his Frankenstein, particularly in the first half. He kind of starts to go off the rails in the second half and kind of lose what made him human. And the movie doesn't even seem to be commenting on that. You know, it's just lost in the performance. But he did a very nice job at points. I liked what he did here. The movie's really about just the two of them. And by the way, Frank makes it very clear up front. You know, he's very in touch with his feelings. He's very eloquent. And he says he not only longs for an emotional life partner, but a physical one as well. And there's quite a bit of talk about that. A lot of buildup. So it was disappointing that this movie can't even say that it has a really great love scene. Instead, what we ended up with was very short and tame and with a lot of quick close-up cuts. It's like a badly filmed action sequence where you're like, yeah, the people you didn't know couldn't do their own stunts. It was really frustrating. You're like, we talked about it for the entire movie and that's it? All right, so, and I think at least there was some tension, I did buy into their romance, to their credit, to the film's credit. So the rest of the excellent cast here just comes and goes, very small parts. But because they're these actors and they have such charisma and very good character design, Penelope Cruz looks phenomenal. So they make a very strong impression and they make you wish that they each had more to do. So then, in the third act, don't worry, no spoilers. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm trying to tell you about the structure of the movie or the lack of structure. So in the third act, a new plot is introduced. And you're like, what? In the third act? I know. And because it comes out of nowhere, so you have no emotional connection to it. And it's trying to retcon the rest of the movie that's already come. And I was like, why would Maggie Gyllenhaal do this? And it became clear that she was trying to find a way to make Frank and the bride sympathetic. Can monsters be sympathetic? That's a really complex and interesting question. One which I think that Todd Phillips explored and answered brilliantly. And look at that. He not only explored it, but I feel answered it. In his first Joker movie, I always still to this day think of the brilliant line that Joker says, if it had been my body, you'd have just stepped over it. That was brilliant. And then, of course, Todd Phillips tore it all down with the Joker 2, which I think this movie is closer to. I feel like, again, Gyllenhaal throws in so many intellectual buzzwords and topics, right? And the movie looks great and has an amazing cast. I think that everybody when they were making this movie and then when they're seeing this movie, I think a lot of people go, well, it's so hard to understand and follow. The few things that I can grab onto tell me that this is important, right? And so people are like, well, maybe it's brilliant, and they just don't see it. That's certainly something that I thought about after I walked out of the press screening. I was like, is this Poor Things all over again? Again, I don't think it is. We'll see. But all I know is that I had a horrible time watching it. It wasn't what I was told I was going to get from the advertising campaign, and I didn't even enjoy it when I got it. And I do think it's a tragedy. It's a tragic waste of incredible resources, and I think a really good idea of exploring Frankenstein through the lens of Bonnie and Clyde. And I think if Maggie Gyllenhaal had just picked maybe one or two things, this would have worked out really well. There's nothing wrong with having some oversight. And I think this is total, it's just, I think, I know a lot of you are going to want to explore it for yourselves. You'll be like, because the trailer is so good and it is such a good idea and the cast is so good. And I understand that, right? And, some of you might even like it. We'll see. But at least now you're prepared. I think that it being not what was promised is a big problem. So that's my review of The Bride. Share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.